There's a batch of heroin going around and it's killing people instantly.
Fuck me. When it rains, it pours me. All I want is a break.
We lost 6 friends in like what, space of 2 weeks.
Shit is gonna hit the fan. This city is gonna go dark.
This is how Europe might be about to experience its own deadly opioid crisis, and how this shift is being driven by bad drug policy at home and by wars thousands of miles away. Experts fear that Europe might be about to enter its very own version of the opioid crisis that has killed hundreds of thousands across the US and Canada. In late 2023, the UK saw a spike in overdose deaths attributed to nitazenes, synthetic opioids that can be up to 300 times stronger than heroin. As we progressed into 2024, these deaths have continued, with nitazenes increasingly finding their way into the UK's drug supply. So far, Europe has largely managed to avoid this wave of synthetic opioids and the death toll they bring. However, over just a few days during the summer of 2023, Bristol, a city in the southwest of England, saw 7 fatal overdoses and over 80 ambulance call-outs due to one local supplier selling heroin that contained nitazenes. We spoke to various people in Bristol who witnessed this outbreak firsthand.
I don't understand what people are addicted to now, you know? They're smoking this stuff, right? It looks like heroin, it smells like heroin, and then you go and get your urine screen, it's like, nah man, you ain't touched any. Well, I've been doing it all week, man, what the fuck? Like, you know, what's going on? You want to know the quality of heroin in fucking Bristol, yeah? Go smoke 5 bags and have a piss test, yeah? And you'll come back clean. And that was when I found out about these synthetics. There's a batch of heroin going around, it's grey, and it's killing people instantly. If you get this grey batch, be very careful. So my friend was like, look, he's like, I'm a regular user, yeah, you know how much I use. I was like, yep. He said, I went over off a fucking quarter of a bag. He said, I woke up with fucking naloxone and paramedics all over me. Off a quarter of a bag. We lost 6 friends in like what, space of 2 weeks. It sort of scared me into not using it.
I bought from the guy. He knew very well he was cut, but he didn't say nothing to me. So when I used it first time, it knocked me out completely. They reckon it's a matter of time until it comes to Europe. And if it comes over here, it'll be an epidemic in biblical proportions.
Across North America, the so-called opioid crisis has been raging since about 2010, and it's only getting worse. Last year, over 110,000 Americans died of drug overdoses. That's more than double the number of American soldiers killed throughout the Vietnam War. What's driven this crisis more than anything else has been the introduction of synthetic opioids into the drug supply. In particular, fentanyl, an opioid that can be up to 50 times stronger than heroin.
0.5% to 1% of fentanyl users will die. A fatal fentanyl dose for you or me is about 1.5 to 2 milligrams. And even in a drug user who's quite opiate tolerant, 4 or 5 milligrams can very likely be a fatal dose.
In the US, fentanyl has fundamentally changed the drugs market. Many users are now actively looking for synthetics instead of traditional heroin. So far, aside from small pockets of fentanyl use in Estonia, Europe hasn't seen this sort of shift to deliberate use. In fact, synthetics are only really popping up when cut into the drug supply. But as results from drug testing services clearly demonstrate, nitazene is rapidly finding its way onto British shores. Back in Bristol, we met with Manny, a heroin user with first-hand experience of synthetic opiates.
I only smoked it, and I felt like the first time I'd ever taken drugs. Never felt that good.
What makes you do what you do?
Because I don't want to feel. Brother.
Why do you have to invest in your growing?
I've been doing it 25 years, mate. I've bastard the life out of it. Well, I started smoking weed at 11, and I was on heroin at 16. It's getting off is one thing, but it's staying off it. It's filling that void. The gear around here is shit. Heroin around here is really shit. It's being cut with something. I'm scared of it because of the fact that I know that it takes lives, but I'm an addict. Yeah, I can't explain it. There'll be more synthetics coming onto the market. The main reason they're cheaper than the real thing. And the lads down there, all the St. Paul's boys, they don't smoke, they don't give a fuck. They'll sell anything. So they want the cheapest to the maximum money. A few of my mates last month, they died. I just come back to the yard. Someone said, Kev's dead. He overdosed. Why am I punishing myself still? It's a form of self-harm, this is.
Synthetic opioids aren't only being found in the street-level heroin supply. In 2022, an 18-year-old from Yorkshire died after using the dark web to buy what he thought were Valium pills. But what he actually received was Nitazene in Valium packaging.
The real concern we're seeing is around Nitazenes, which are being cut into the heroin supply, and also the benzo supply in Bristol. People using benzos they might be using on their own. If they're using to go to sleep, it's a real concern, and they're more likely to be opioid naive, so haven't built up any tolerance at all to opioids, so it'll take much less to cause an overdose. In America, there's 70,000 people who die every year from a fentanyl-related overdose. In the UK, it's much lower. But with Nitazenes, that could go up tenfold. It could really, really increase if we aren't prepared for it. We had multiple people coming in to use our needle exchange, and every single one of them talking about knowing multiple people have overdosed. We'd never heard of this happening in Bristol before, and straight away, those alarm bells were ringing that there's something wrong here.
The question is, how exactly has Europe managed to avoid an American-style opioid crisis? Surprisingly, it turns out we can thank authentic Afghan heroin for the relative lack of deaths across the continent. In 2021, US troops pulled out of Afghanistan and the Taliban immediately took over. In order to win favour from the international community, the Taliban cracked down on opium poppy production.
The United Nations and the world really has been asking Afghanistan to stop growing poppies, which is the source of heroin. But Afghanistan produces 85 or more % of the world's heroin, but particularly Europe's and the UK's illicit supply of heroin. And this last year, the Taliban actually got rid of almost all of their crop.
Some Western politicians even publicly praised the Taliban for this crackdown. Of course, all this shows is how little most politicians understand the global drugs trade. Restricting the supply of Afghan heroin was never going to stop people taking drugs. Instead, it's likely it'll just push up the price of heroin, encouraging European drug traffickers to start smuggling synthetic opioids.
The people who sell heroin in the UK and across Europe have got a long-established supply chain which leads back to Afghanistan. There's families that have been doing it now for a couple of generations, certainly 30, 40 years, and it works for them. And this is a product which they're used to selling. They know where to get it from and how to get it into the country, and they've got customers who are waiting to receive it. And then suddenly they're told, well, I'm sorry that the harvest stopped, and next year there may be none at all. And they're thinking, well, what are we going to do? Unfortunately, it's left a hole in the market which is going to be filled, I'm afraid, with synthetic opioids, and in our case, it seems to have been mainly Nitazenes.
Nitazene is thought to be largely produced by labs in China, and in many ways, this is a classic war on drugs story. In 2019, after years of pressure from the US, China officially banned the production of fentanyl and many of its variants. So a load of those fentanyl labs just shifted over to Nitazene, an even stronger molecule which they were still able to produce, despite the drug having no approved medical uses anywhere in the world.
Because we are at this crossroads, and because the heroin supply could disappear this year or become very much more expensive and therefore be so dilute that people would turn away from it and look more and more to Nitazenes.
There have been reports of Nitazene showing up in the drug supply across the UK, from London to Scotland, Wales to the northeast. As of January 2024, at least 65 Nitazene-related deaths have been confirmed, with cases in London, Bristol, Yorkshire, and the West Midlands. But that's likely just the tip of the iceberg, as many coroners weren't testing for the drug until recently. In Bristol, we met Richard, a recovering heroin user who in the last year has lost multiple friends to synthetics.
It frightens me. We're in a situation at the moment where things are really dark. Okay, heroin's been around for ages. People don't want to do it, but they do it. They need to do it for whatever reason. But it's not as frightening as what is going to happen. And I say is, not maybe. There's people actively seeking out to get any Nitazene or fentanyl, and there's people who are scared of it. And this needs to stop. I'm almost in tears now. If someone doesn't do something, it's going to be shit.
Most users just don't know what they're getting, and it's possible that even the dealers aren't always aware of what they're selling.
I kind of have a friend who I re-met up with who was dealing it, but he had no idea what it was. He just knew that people weren't buying it because it was too strong. When they're mixing the stuff, who knows what's going to be in one bag to the next bag. So it's a dangerous game.
It seems as though European authorities are completely unprepared for the wave of synthetic opioids that might be about to hit them. For now, it's only really independent groups or drug workers trying to protect people amid the growing number of nitazene-related deaths, with many encouraging users to carry naloxone or get their supply tested before injecting.
It's moving so fast. I've been working in this field for 40 years. I've not seen anything like this before. We need to increase testing, drug checking. We need to know what's in the supplies that are coming into the country now and then over the next 6 months as this changes. We need places where people can get their own drugs checked that they've bought for themselves. We need the police to be checking more. We need much more access to naloxone. Each of the nitazenes that have been produced has been slightly different in its level of toxicity and its potency. The problem is that they're very much more potent than heroin. Services are not prepared in the UK. I hope we're not walking into a crisis, but there is a crisis there. There's an emerging threat, and we need to step up to prevent otherwise thousands of young people dying in 2024.
When it comes to drug policy, you can never underestimate the ability of politicians to ignore evidence and disregard warnings from experts. But looking at the wave of synthetic opioid deaths that has swept across North America, this may be Europe's last chance to change tack and avoid a similarly catastrophic tragedy.
We'd like to congratulate drugs for winning the war on drugs.